unanimously a request to put together a specific plan, and then when they didn't like that, we directed our staff to move forward on putting a ballot, preparation of initiative for the ballot, because this again is important to our community. Next slide, please. And because the process to this point has really been done outside of the public eye. We don't know what went on in these meetings in Sacramento and what encouraged particular assembly members to support the legislation to put the fairgrounds up for sale. We don't have really any information about that. So we are encouraged that Assembly members Tran and Solorio hosted a town hall meeting here in Costa Mesa and took a lot of public comment. Many of you were here, and the goal of that meeting was to expose to the state and to others a lot of the concerns that had been being expressed amongst ourselves but had not gotten out to a wider public, and I think we did accomplish that. Assembly member Tran offered to sponsor legislation to restrict future use of the fairgrounds, and we heard from many speakers regarding the procedure of this process for the bidding, as well as from some of the fair board members themselves.
Can I just add? The reason that we decided to go for the initiative is that we really want to make it clear that it will be used for a fairgrounds, regardless of who's sitting up here on the city council. That down the road, future city councils could not decide, because you, the voters, will have decided, and that it will be a fairground. So that is the reason, and it is I believe $150,000 to do that, to put it on the ballot somewhere. It's a range. Yeah, a range around there. So it is an expensive endeavor for us at these times, but we feel it's very important to really lock it in, and so that is going on regardless of what happens or what's not in our control. We can control that.
So that's where we were, and here's where we are, and the future is the sale is still on the books. The submission date for bids is January 8th. The process is one that is a fast track process, but it also is one where if you don't know who's bidding, and you don't know what they're bidding until January 14th, when all the bids are open. And then at that time, there's an opportunity for those who qualified to bid to increase their bids, and the floor for the actual live auction will actually be the highest bidder. That's my understanding. The floor will be the highest bidder. So at the live auction, if the city of Costa Mesa is the highest bidder, we set the floor. If it's a large developer with a lot of money, they set the floor and inch out anybody else who might be a public agency wanting to restrict the use to a fairground. Then there'll be a series of events that take place and the transfer of ownership as early as October 1st, 2010. So we're talking in less than 1 year, they will have accomplished the sale of 150 acres with several hundred employees and Pacific Amphitheater and all kinds of uses. That's unheard of in state government. So it should give us pause. I'm all about efficiency, but maybe this is a little too efficient. Okay, moving on to the next slide. So we've covered some of these issues, but again, the arguments against the sale. This is not going to solve the state's budget crisis. The sale of the fairgrounds, if you don't know, the dollar amount is not even included in this fiscal year budget. So we don't close a hole by selling the fairgrounds. We don't plug a hole of any kind. Did you want to add anything, Member?
No, I think
the public already paid for the fairgrounds, and we shouldn't have to pay a second time to keep what we already own. Now, having said that, we also want to make sure that we keep the fairgrounds. So if we don't have any other option, the city is committed to, at this point in time, moving forward and trying to secure the property for our own control. Next slide. We talked about this. The sale is just moving too quickly. A local entity like the city or a county, we have public meeting requirements, notice requirements. We have requirements in terms of being able to give authority for budget expenditures. And this sale was not designed to allow a public entity to retain the fairgrounds, because it didn't anticipate that you would have to have thoughtful consideration, public hearings, public meetings, and a public process. Did you have anything else? Next item. Again, it's designed for a private redevelopment of the site and elimination of the Orange County Fairgrounds as we know it. Just the opposite of what the city of Costa Mesa. I don't know one Orange County resident who wants to see anything other than a fairgrounds there. So we need to do whatever we can to protect this valuable asset in our community. Mayor Pro Tem Lee?
Well, I think going on to the next one, that we know of, hundreds if not thousands of jobs would be lost from the people who work at the Orange County marketplace. Those are, I like what Councilmember Foley said, the incubator businesses that are just starting up, and who knows, they get big enough and they come over and find a place on the west side of Costa Mesa and move along. But it displaces a lot of people, and state workers as well, the equestrian trainers and suppliers. Actually, as we've looked over the financial figures for the fairgrounds, it does generate a profit, and it's been managed well in the last many years, and so it doesn't seem like selling this asset is really to anybody's advantage right now.
And the more and more questions that the surrounding neighbors, the surrounding businesses, the surrounding public agencies pose, the more we learn about all of the contracts and entitlements and relationships and partnerships that we have with the Orange County Fairgrounds. Orange Coast College and the Coast Community College District, for example, has contracts with the fairgrounds for parking, for services, and this fast-paced timeline does not anticipate any of these existing contracts that would really create havoc in our community. Next slide, please. Aside from what I would consider altruistic reasons to keep our fairgrounds here in Costa Mesa, it's just not good business sense for the state to sell one of their assets at the lowest point in the market. I mean, it's good for the city if we wanted to buy it, but it doesn't help us at the state level. It couldn't come at a worse time. And there are a lot of unanswered questions about whether the ag district actually has to continue. It's my understanding that the implementing statute for the agricultural district requires there to actually be a fairgrounds here in Orange County. So if somebody purchases the fairground property and they want to develop something other than a fairgrounds, where does it go? That's a question nobody seems to know the answer to.
Great park.
No.
Next slide. And we already spoke of this, that most of these discussions, putting this valuable Costa Mesa, Orange County asset up for sale, have been done behind closed doors in secret meetings without the vetting of the public, which is really wrong. Moving on. And even if the governor chooses to keep the for sale sign on the fairgrounds, it is anticipated that this will be litigated. There'll be costly litigation both to the state, to the city, to anybody who purchases the fairgrounds, and any value or revenue that benefited the state may dramatically decrease as a result of these costly